Welcome. It is the 12th of April. This is our second fundamentals class. We started with the salute, and let us just review the salute briefly because last time we just learned how to do it, and today we'll talk about the Chinese for it. We'll do some standing practice. Last week we did footwork for the bow stance. We'll continue working on bow stance, and then we'll introduce empty stance as well, and we'll do footwork and body for both of those, hopefully. See how time goes. And so with the salute, so you make a fist with your right hand, and the way you make a fist is you roll your fingers across until you get a nice shape like this, and your thumb goes across the second joint of your finger. And so your fist is shaped like this. So this represents the warrior. And then we take the flat of the hand, which represents the scholar, put it over the flat of the hand and press out to make our salute. So the warrior meets the scholar, as we talked about last time. One of the things that we talked about as well last time is Tai Chi Chuan has a whole theory behind it. And in fact, if you look at the name, Taiji means fist. Taiji means everything, and it's a reference to Taiji philosophy, the scholar, and Chuan means fist. So in the very name, you have this pairing of the scholar and the warrior. So you'll see these pairs everywhere in Tai Chi Chuan, and we'll talk about them a lot today and in every other class. So let's talk a little bit about the salute. These are the salutes. At the start of class, the teacher says, students, hello. And the students say, teacher, hello. So the Chinese is, well, this isn't, but this is my version of it. 同学们好. And then you would say, 老师好. At the end of class, it's goodbye instead of hello. So it's 再见 instead of 好. So I would say 同学们再见, and you would say 老师再见,老师再见. 同学们好. Very good. Thank you very much. Good. So we talked a little bit about where we were and what we're going to be doing. Let us start with our still practice, another one of the pairs that you get in Tai Chi theory, which is yin and yang, is still practice and moving practice. And so we'll be doing still practice first, and then we'll do some moving practice. Let us begin with our still practice. And last week, we did a lot of talking about the footwork for bow stance, and the same kind of thing applies to this stance, which is parallel stance. So actually, we'll use this as an opportunity to review the footwork in parallel stance. So here in this stance, we stand with our feet shoulder width apart or a bit wider. I like it a little bit wider. The three basic criteria which we find in pretty much all our stances is, number one, the feet are either straight or to the corner. In this case, they're both straight front and back. The second is that we have our weight even on the front and the back, so even over the ball and the heel. We call that weight over the bubbling well. So the bubbling well is an acupuncture point just about here behind the ball of the foot. And so when we say the weight over the bubbling well, that means that your center of gravity is between the ball and the heel, a little bit closer to the ball than the heel. The way you test that is, can you lift your heels easily, and can you lift the balls of your feet easily? If you can't, you're good. The third one is crotch rounded. And so crotch rounded means that the weight is even on the insides and the outsides of our feet. If my feet are very wide, you can see that if my legs were straight, my feet would be tilted in like this, and all the weight would be on the inside of my feet. So I would actually have, I'd round my crotch so that my knees and my toes and my shins are in one plane. You normally don't notice that so much in straight stance. So that's the first three. Feet straight, bubbling well, crotch rounded. The second set is where do we position? And so here it's shoulder width. Where is the weight distribution? It's 50-50. And what is the shape of the legs? And so here for this stance, we're going to have the knees bent. So for this stance, so take up your stance and bend the knees. Round the arms. And so here we'll start by just reviewing the shape of the arms. And so I'll tilt them down so that you can see they're in this nice round shape. And if your arms get tired, always feel free to release them to here or bring them up to here. Fingertips are fist width apart. The palm is relaxed. And so the shape of the palm is that the width of the fingertips from top to bottom is about the same as the width of your palm. And so our fingertips aren't close together and they're not splayed out either. The hand is just easy. It's not limp. It's not stiff. Okay. So let us do standing practice for a couple of minutes. So we'll do 4 things with the body posture. So start with the head lifting. Number 1, head lifting up. So feel it pushing up from the crown of your head and feel the rest of your body. Feel your head glued to the sky and the rest of your body suspended from the neck on down. Number 2, sink the shoulders and drop the elbows. It's very easy if we lift our heads, we might raise our elbows or raise our shoulders. Sink the elbows down, drop the shoulders down the back. The next thing we want to do is to slightly absorb our chest. So feel as if there's an expansion in your upper arms. Your elbows are extending away from your spine, opening and loosening your back. And at the same time, your fingertips are extending away from your elbows, so you have this circle. And it's open and extended, not too stiff, but not limp either. And the third thing that we're doing is to relax the waist. Now, the waist is the translation that we use for the Chinese word yao, which is the lower back, the lumbar spine. So open and extend the lower back by dropping your hips straight down. And at this point, go and check your feet again. You may well have found after attending to all these things, your weight isn't even front and back anymore. So check, weight even front and back, crotch rounded. And we'll go back up, relax the waist, absorb the chest by extending through the elbows and the fingertips. Now, very often, if you extend too much, your shoulders will go up. So relax your shoulders down. And then lift up with the head. And release. So that's our standing practice. We will be doing this stance as we learn the other stances, the other postures. We'll do standing practice in other stances as well, not just this one. Before I go on, are there any questions? Okay. We will follow Greg's example and we'll do a few warm-ups before we start moving. And in general, I will make suggestions. I'll offer things for you to do. Pay attention to your body. If it feels uncomfortable, if you're not sure that what I'm suggesting is safe, don't do it. If you're not sure, go and ask a medical professional. I'm not one of those. So listen to your body, don't listen to me. So we'll start by just doing nice bouncing movements. So just bend your knees and just bounce up and down. What we're going to be practicing, so Tai Chi is the art of hard and soft, and we start with soft. And soft doesn't mean limp, it means extended and springy. And this is what you can start feeling if you just let things flap a little bit. we want this feeling of softness. And this will start warming up your ankles, your thighs. Now, the next thing we'll do is extend your arms in front, and we call this flapping palms, but in fact, we're not going to be flapping our palms really. We're moving our wrists up and down so that the whole arm and the whole hand moves. So let's do 2 sets of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The next one, we'll call this flapping in. So my arms are still extended in front and I'm moving my wrists out. I'm not just flapping my palms, moving the wrists out and back. Let's do 2 sets of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to do something we'll call flapping out. So start with the palms in front of the chest and just throw out your fingers as we keep bouncing up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to do the shoulder. We're going to start by going out to the front, down, and back up again. If it's comfortable for you, try and have the back of your hands facing each other with the palms facing out. This will give you a little bit more of a stretch in the shoulders. Okay, so we've done flapping out. So shoulders twist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to turn around and go the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The last one, we'll just do the same exercise that we did last week, which is loosening your waist, your yao, your lower back. So start with the arms just crossed. I want you to keep this box shape. So don't move your arms without moving your chest. You're going to move your whole chest. Bend your legs so that you immobilize your hips and go this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what you can do to just get the sense of your chest moving your arms is move your chest and your arms will follow. So as you rotate your waist, rotate your lower back, moves the chest, and that'll move the arms backwards and forwards. Now, a couple of things. My favorite chair, if you have a chair handy, we'll be using these chairs for the next few practices. One of the reasons why a chair is handy, and not a rotating office chair, because that's not going to help us. The first thing is, if you're unsure about whether you do this movement and your hips are moving, if you can, just straddle the seat and lock your knees on either side of the seat. This way, you're not going to compromise your knees. You know your knees are not going to swivel. The movement is all going to be in your lower back. However, the real reason I wanted my chair is to talk a little bit about opening the groin. So last week when we did the bow stance, we were in bow stance, we'll review bow stance, but one of the things we talked about was crotch rounded. So you want to be able to have your knee and toe line in the front and the back. So you can see my groins are open a little bit. When I move forward, I'm going to open my front foot and step through. But notice that now my feet are at 90 degrees from each other. And you still want to have your knees and toes in the same plane, which means you have to open your groin even more. So I want to show you an exercise that over time will help to open your groin. It will also help develop leg strength. And again, there are far too many people in the world who say, this is just 5 minutes a day. We don't have that many 5 minutes to do everybody's 5 minutes, but um, I'm going to offer you things. This may not be the time to do it, but perhaps it is. I'm going to use the chair for balance. You don't have to. Have one foot, your standing foot, pointing to the corner. If you need to, hold on to the chair for balance. We're going to open the hips. Drop the leg, bring it up again, and open the hips. Let's just do 5. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll do it on the other side. So the other foot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you do 20 or 30 of these a day for a couple of months, you'll find that it helps to open your hips. What I'm doing now is, let's just do 10 today. See what your body feels like tomorrow. And if your body is fine tomorrow, try more. The second thing I want to point out that's very important is if you are standing on this foot, your hips are pointing in the direction of your supporting foot. So they're pointing off in that corner. When you open your leg here, be careful not to turn your hip at the same time. Because unless you do it right, and it takes a while to learn how to do it right, if I have my foot on the ground and I'm rotating my hip, I usually bring my thigh bone with me. I'm talking my knee, because my thigh bone is going in this direction and my shin bone isn't going anywhere because my foot's on the ground. So when you're standing here, make sure that you're just opening here. You're not moving your hips. So let's try this again. 5 more. So standing on one foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's our warm-up exercises for today. To just begin our moving practice, let's start again with the exercise that we did. Actually, it's a movement that we did, which is the beginning and the end of the traditional form. So stand with your feet shoulder width apart, both pointing forwards, hands by the side of your legs. You're going to lift your arms and bring them down again. Your legs are not going to change. As you do this exercise, I want you to think about the standing practice that we did. So pick one, like, am I keeping my shoulders down? Am I keeping my waist relaxed as I do this movement? Okay, so let us do this movement. So rotate the arms, lift the arms, keep them shoulder width apart to shoulder height, press down, keep the palms parallel to the ground as you press down, and then finish by putting your hands back at the sides of the legs. We'll do it again. As we do it now, I want you to focus. We're going to start the lifting at the shoulder, then the elbow, then think wrist. As we come back down again, start at the shoulder, then the elbow, then the wrist. Again, so begin, rotate, lifting, up as you press down, shoulder goes first, then the elbow, then the wrist, pressing down, and by the side of your leg. If you think about the yin and yang here, we've done up and down is one pair. We can also do breathing in and out. So now let's do breathing as the pair. Breathe in as you go up and breathe out as you come down. Begin. Rotate and lift as you breathe in. Keep moving smoothly down, press down to the end and stop. Start breathing again here. When you finish, just be sure that your palms are parallel to the ground, not tilted down like this, but parallel to the ground. And then we go back to the original position. with our middle finger down the side of our legs. Okay, so that is the beginning and end of the traditional form. As we learn more, we'll keep coming back to this exercise and start finding more things in just this very simple exercise, since we're not going to be learning the form in these classes. Okay, let us review what we learned last week. What I was talking about last week was that we have a progression in learning. There are 3 stages. The first is we understand the reason for why we're doing something. The second is we know our body, get to know our body. And the third is to learn to apply everything we've learned to martial art. Now, for that, you need a partner. So we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be focusing on know your body. Know your body has 5 subcomponents. The 5 are footwork, body, means middle body, practice methods, and we'll be doing waist movement and relax in this course, arm movements, and gaze. So today, or last week, we did the bow stance. So, and we focused, and we did footwork. So today we'll finish up footwork and we'll add body for bow stance. So let us review. Work with me, and actually I will assume that you are facing the screen. And I will mirror you. So when I say your right-hand side, I'm lifting my left arm, but I'm assuming that if you're mirroring me, this would be your right arm. So let us perform a bow stance. Start with your left foot to the corner, bend the leg, step out, come forward into a bow stance. Let us review the elements of the bow stance. So the first 3, which are pretty much the same for all movements. 1 is straight, 1 to the corner. Second is weight over the bubbling well. So make sure that both your feet are down, even, weight, ball and heel. In particular, one of the things that is often an issue is if your weight is too far forward, you'll feel your back heel floating up. So make sure that you have enough pressure back from the front leg that you have the whole of the back foot down. The third is crotch rounded. So make sure that when you're in your bow stance, you don't have your knee tilted in, either the front or the back. It's usually the front knee that's a problem. So round your crotch so that you have even pressure inside and outside on both feet. Another way of saying that is that the knees and the toes are in the same plane in both cases. So change to the other side, because I'm going to talk a little bit more. The other 3 things vary from stance to stance. So the first one is, where do we position our feet? So forward back, my foot goes forward far enough that I can bring it back easily. So don't lunge forward into a bow stance and then you can't come back. We call this being double weighted. So go forward just far enough that you can come back. And the width, side to side, is shoulder width. And as we talked about last week, shoulder width is the outside of your feet match the outside of your shoulders. And for me, a rough rule of thumb is if you touch your thumbs and put your pinky toe, you'll put your pinkies on your second toe, that's about shoulder width. So if you ever want to check quickly, that's shoulder width. Okay, so the first thing about the bow stance, the second set, forward, back, you can come back, shoulder width apart. The second is the shape of the legs. Front leg is bent, but not so bent that you can't see your toes. So not like this, just back, not like this either. Probably your shins are tilted forward slightly. The back leg is straight. It's taiji straight. It's not locked. It's always got a little bit of a bend in it. And then the last one is weight distribution, 60% on the front, 40% on the back. So positioning, forward, back, left, right, 1 bent, 1 straight, 60-40. Then we talked about moving. So let us practice moving, changing direction. I'll start here. I'm still mirroring. Oh yes, one of the things that I found when you go into a bow stance, what I recommend is you always start on your back foot and then step out with your front foot. It's very easy to put your front foot down and then try and find where your back foot is, and sometimes you end up too long and sometimes you end up too short. Start on the back foot, go forward. So I want to change direction from this direction through 90 degrees. I'm going to turn my front foot, which would be your right foot, through 45 degrees. So I shift my weight back slightly and turn 45 degrees. I'm going to step out now in that direction. My feet are more than shoulder width apart, so I'm going to bring this foot in, step it out again, and go forward into a bow stance. So I've changed 90 degrees. Let's change back. So shift your weight back slightly, rotate your front foot, which would be your left foot, through 45 degrees. It's pointing to the corner, both feet are to the corner. Bring your front foot in, step out, and there you are back in the bow stance. Now, we can also move in a straight line. We talked about that. So let's practice that together. So we're in a bow stance. Now we're going to go in a straight line. Shift your weight back slightly. Open your front foot, which is my left foot. We're going to step through. The back foot comes in, slightly steps out, and touches down. Open the front foot. Move your weight in the direction of the front foot. Back foot comes in slightly, steps out, and flattens. There are a few things that I want to remind you of about how we move. So when we go forwards, the order is usually touch with the heel, then the ball, then the toe. There's always heel, ball, toe, and actually bend knee. So I'm going to open my front foot. Now you'll see the back foot is also heel, ball, toe. Heel comes off, then ball comes off, then toe comes off, touches down, heel, ball, toe. Open, step through, heel, ball, toe. When we think about how we do this movement, the first thing is the order, heel, ball, toe, going forwards. The next is we want to move smoothly and evenly in young family style. So from here, imagine you're walking on thin ice. Shift weight back, open the front toe, crotch rounded. Shift your weight in the direction of the front foot. Step through. The reason why you want to be able to come back is, boy, if the ice is bad over there, you can always come back. So step out, heel, ball, toe, bend knee. Open, crotch rounded, move your weight in the direction of the foot, not the direction that you want to move. Step through, heel, ball, toe, bend knee. The next thing about young family style is that we don't lift our feet very high when we step, and we don't drag it either. So shift weight back, open the front foot. Pick the back foot up, just bring it out pick it up like an inch or two, put it down again. Master Young says, like walking through mud. You just want to pick your foot out of the mud and step through. I haven't heard Master Young say this, but to me, I imagine a cat walking over wet grass. Cats walk very smoothly, and usually they don't lift their paws very high. But if the grass is wet, it's like, I don't want to put my paws on the wet grass, so they just lift it a little bit higher. So that's the kind of smooth, even walk that you want. The last thing we didn't talk about last week, I just want to answer a question which some of you may have, is what is the path of the back leg? So I'm going to step forward here. Does my back foot just go along this line? Does it come in all the way to my heel here and then go out? The answer is no to both. Essentially, you can think about it, it just swings through comfortably. So here it's probably about hip width this is, you know, the foot's just coming through as the hip swings and it steps out. On the other side, just swing it through. It comes in a little bit so that your hips are relaxed. Step out, bend knee. The last thing is we talked about doing the stepping. We can change through 90 degrees. We can go in a straight line forward. We can also reverse. So let's practice going in one direction, turning around and coming back. So we're in a bow stance. So let's say I have my left foot forward. I want to go back that direction. I'm going to turn my front foot through 135 degrees. Since the direction, the amount of turning is more than 90 degrees, I'm going to shift my weight all the way onto the back leg. Pivot my left foot so that it's pointing to that corner. Shift my weight back, straighten my hips. You'll see I'll pivot on my toe, step out, shoulder width, heel, ball, toe, bend knee. I can come back the other way. So shift my weight back, pivot the back foot, 135 degrees, pick up my front foot by the ball, pick up the ball first, step out, heel, ball, toe, bend knee. Now that you've done those movements, and I'll leave this to you where I hope you'll have a chance to practice, you can just start adding, you can start putting these things together in any sequence. So that was a full step forward, turning through 90 degrees, going another step forward in the same straight direction, turning around, coming back this way, turn through 90 degrees. And so even if you have quite a small space, you can practice your footwork. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So we've talked about footwork, and under footwork, there are actually 3 headings. And the headings are stance, moving, and rooting. So we've talked about stance, like where you put your foot and what's the shape of the leg and all those kinds of things. We've talked about moving. How do you go from one stance to another? Now we're going to talk about rooting. And the reason why rooting is important is if you're dealing with an opponent and they're pushing at you, or you want to deliver energy to them, our ability to deliver energy, yes, it's in the muscles, but we're pushing off against the ground. So when I'm striking, I'm actually pushing off, and the energy is coming from the feet through the legs, through the waist to the hands. So I need to have a good solid stance in order to deliver energy. It's a bit like if you're pushing, let's say you're pushing a car and it's icy. It's really hard because you push and your feet just slip. Or if you're trying to move a sofa on a hardwood floor and you're wearing socks, it's really hard to do because you don't have good root. So we want to make sure we have good root. There are 2 things, two headings under rooting. They are called push and support and central settle down. So let's talk about both. Push and support. I want you to perform a bow stance, either side. And I want you to just move your weight forward and back just slightly. Just wiggle forward and back. And what I want you to be able to feel is you can, when you push back with the front leg, you can feel it in your back leg. When you push with the back leg, you can feel it in the front foot. So we want this complementarity that both legs are pushing. So my back leg is pushing, my front leg is supporting. My front leg is pushing, my back leg is supporting. So we call this push and support. And you change bow stance on the other side, just you're not doing it too much. So feel that wiggle. You've got push and support in both feet. One of the reasons why I so much enjoy doing fundamentals is that there are so many things to keep straight. It's never ending. So when you're doing push and support, what I find is I forget about my bubbling well. I forget about my crotch rounded. So you work on one and then you go back and fix the other one, and then something else gets unraveled and you go back and fix that. So it's the work of a lifetime. It's one of the things that makes Tai Chi Chuan interesting. So rooting, we've talked about push and support. Now let's talk about central settle down. Perform a bow stance. Now I want you to move your weight further. Go back quite a lot, go forwards quite a lot. So imagine there's a hole in the ground, you've got a basement, there's a chain around your waist with a big chain hanging down through the hole in the ground with a big weight on the bottom. And it's like a pendulum, and you're going to try and swing the pendulum forward and back. So you swing it forward and back, forward and back. And so one of the first things you'll find is that as you swing back, you've got to push with the back leg to stop yourself from keeping going. So there's push and support here, but there's something else going on as well. So what I'd like you to see if you can find is as you move your weight forward and you stop with the front leg, the pulse travels back into your back foot. So you'll stop yourself with the front foot and you'll feel a pulse in the back foot. And then actually that pulse will go back to the front foot again. And there's a pulse that goes front, back, and then it finishes. So this is what we call push and support, that when you go forward, the pulse goes to the back and you have this springiness that centers down and settles. If you change your footwork, let's try it on the other side. Swing your weight forward and back, and then just stop and see if you can feel that as you stop with the front leg, the pulse goes into the back foot, and maybe you can feel it coming all the way back to the front foot. This is what we call central settle down. The reason why central settle down is important is humans have only 2 legs. Unlike other animals, we don't have 4. So it's very hard for us to keep our balance. If somebody pushes me from this direction, I'm very, very strong. But if they push me from this direction, I'm just going to fall over because I don't have a leg behind me. One of the things for central settle down, and by the way for crotch rounded, is to help us be more stable, particularly in these weak directions. So that's why we practice central settle down. When you do your moving, so let's say we've done moving now, we step through. If you move more quickly, you can find the central settle down. So sometimes when you're practicing, just try and move more quickly than we normally do, and stop yourself, and you will gradually find central settle down. And come back to the other direction, step through, central settle down. So we've done footwork, stance, moving, and now rooting. As I said, under Know Your Body, there's footwork, there's middle body, which we usually just shorthand call body, practice methods, arms and hands, and gaze. So let's talk about the second one. We've done footwork, let's talk about body. Under body, there's 2 things that you need to know. One of them you already know, so we'll leave that for now. The first is your body setting, so the angles. Where the essentially, yeah, partly the angles, but also how you set parts of your body. So perform a bow stance. The first part of body setting, there are 2, is centralize your tailbone. So you can see my heels are on my shoulder width apart line, this blue line. The center line is the yellow line. I want to keep my tailbone over that yellow line. So my tailbone is always over the yellow line. So for example, when I come back, I might actually open my hips more. If I go forward, my hips come to this direction. When I go back, my hips open. But I always want to keep my tailbone over the center line. One of the ways you can see if you're not centered is if this leg is straight, vertical. It's not. If the plane is vertical, your hip is scooted all the way over here, you don't have your hip centralized over the line between your heels. So that's the first one, centralize the tailbone. The second one is the angle of your body. In a bow stance, there are two versions. One is when we're facing forward, the body is tilted so that my torso is in line with my back leg. So this is the angle that we want in a forward bow stance, not like this. Normally, there are a few stances in the form where we are further forward, but normally we're in a straight line, torso and back legs. There's also another bow stance where our torso is vertical. You have to make an adjustment to your hips for that to work. So if I'm in here in this position and I just lift my back, my torso vertical, I can feel a crick in my back. I need to rotate my hips open to get my torso vertical and still have my waist relaxed. So these are the two positions in bow stance. Torso in line with the back leg, hip is just a little bit more than straight, less than corner. When my torso is vertical, my hips are open, more to the corner. So under body, there is body setting, the two things we've just talked about, centralizing your tailbone and getting those angles right. We'll practice these. We'll do it again next week. The second thing is body shape. Actually, we've done body shape. That's what we did in standing practice. So the 4 parts of body shape are lift the head, sink the shoulders, drop the elbows, absorb the chest, relax the waist. That's body shape, and that you will find in all the postures that we do. So let's do it in a bow stance. Perform a bow stance. 60% on the front. Let's say we're in this forward leaning one. Arms rounded. And let's start at the top. So lift the head. So the first thing is I'm lifting my head even though my torso is tilted forward. My head isn't tilted forward. The front of my face should be vertical. So that's head up, shoulders down, elbows down, absorb the chest. And for me, the hardest one is relax the waist. So as you're in this posture, feel your lower back, your lumbar spine opening, and check the angle. It's very easy to be tilted like this, or sometimes like this, but you want to be waist relaxed. So those are the body shape elements for bow stance. Are there any questions? Okay. Let's start. We won't get all the way through probably, but let's start with empty stance. There are two main stances, bow stance and empty stance. We'll also look at one-legged stance. That requires more leg strength, and we'll leave that for a few more classes and we'll come back to it. So to do an empty stance, start with one foot to the corner. The other foot will be straight in front of you, and what I want you to do is touch with the heel. And so you're going to be in this posture. The elements. The front foot is to the straight direction. The back foot is to the corner. You have weight over the bubbling well. Only think about it with the back foot because the whole of the back foot is flat on the ground. With this front foot, you're touching with the heel, but the whole of the heel. So not the edge of the heel and not the foot flat either. The heel, the whole heel, and nothing but the heel. Crotch rounded. Again, for this one, it's easy for us to collapse. It's it's not normally a problem. So make sure that your crotch is rounded. Let's talk about the other things. So where do I put my heel? So I sink my weight down on this back leg. My hips stay over my back foot. Put my foot out just enough that I can get the heel down. That's where that foot goes. That's the positioning. And remember, center line, two sides. So the two heels are on either side of an imaginary line. The weight distribution, most of it's on the back leg. We say 70%. In order to get 30% on that heel, don't move your hips forward. Tilt at the groin crease. So actually fold yourself forward to get 30% on the heel. Shape of the legs. The back leg you can see is bent. And it's fine if it's over the knee. Sorry, it's fine if your knee is over the toes. That's just a requirement in bow stance that it shouldn't be. The front leg, I want you to be taiji straight. So it's not locked. And it's not like this either. It's straight but not locked. So let's look at that again. So change to the other side. Sink down, back foot to the corner. Touch with the heel of the front foot. Check. Heels are on either side of a line. You've got weight over the bubbling well of the back foot. The front foot is heel, but the whole heel, but not the front of the foot. Weight distribution, 70% in the back, 30 in the front. Front leg straight, but not locked. So that's the stance. Let's do moving. To move in empty stance is actually quite simple. So let's say we are in an empty stance. I want to change through 90 degrees. My front foot only has 30%, so I don't actually have to move my weight at all. Pivot the front foot through 45 degrees, shift your weight onto that foot, and step out heel touch. To go back 45 degrees the other direction, pivot, 45 degrees on pivot on the heel, step out, center line, two sides. Let me start back over here. Let's try that again. So, empty stance, heel touch, pivot, front foot, 45 degrees, shift your weight onto that foot, pick up the front foot, step out, center line, two sides, fold forward at the torso to get 30% on the front. Change 90 degrees again. So pivot on the front foot, 45 degrees, shift your weight over onto the front foot, pick up, step out, center line, two sides, heel touch. And again, shift by pivoting, shift the weight over, step out, heel touch. Now, we can also move in a straight line. We won't talk about going backwards in this class, but going forwards is very straightforward. Yeah, bad pun. Start heel touch. We're going to move in this direction. Instead of pivoting the foot in, pivot the foot out. So one foot is to this corner, other foot's to that corner. You're going to move your weight in the direction of that front foot, step through, heel touch. I'm going to keep moving, so open the front toe to 45 degrees, shift your weight in the direction of the front foot, pick up the back foot, heel touch. Let's do a few more of those. And remember, the requirements for moving, you want to move smoothly and evenly like a cat on wet grass. So open the front toe. Remember, crotch rounded. Move your weight in the direction of your front toe. Step through, heel touch. Check that your weight is over 70% over the back foot. Pivot the front foot open. Step through, heel touch. And again, open, step through, heel touch. The body requirements for empty stance are actually much simpler. They are the same as they are for bow stance, but if, as you can imagine, your feet are either side of the center line, so that your tailbone isn't going to go far wrong. So we don't really worry so much about tailbone the way we do with the bow stance. The other thing is the setting, the body set, the forward tilt. Tilt when you tilt forward, tilt at the hip crease. Don't bend your back. So you don't want to bend in your back, in your spine. You want to fold here, where your thighs go into your pelvis, and then for the rest. So let's do this, and so let's do a little bit of walking with this stance. So arms rounded in front of your chest, empty stance, heel touch. Open the front toe, shift forward. Your chest will turn in the direction of the supporting foot. Step out with the heel, touch. Now as you move your weight forward onto that foot, your chest will go round to the other side. Step out, heel touch. Make sure you keep your crotch rounded. Shift your weight forward. As you shift your weight forward, you'll find that your chest goes from side to side. Let me turn around, go the other direction, starting off in an empty stance. Open front foot, shift your weight forward, chest goes to the front foot direction, step out, chest goes to the supporting foot direction as you keep stepping. And observe all the requirements for moving and rooting that we talked about earlier. We'll practice all of this again next week, and I hope that you get a chance to practice. If you have a few minutes this evening or a few minutes tomorrow, just practice these things. I will post the video with links to the different parts if there's a part that you just want to review. So let me bring up the slides and let's just quickly look at what we talked about today for those of us who are visual learners. So here's the salute, the greeting that we talked about. So at the beginning, I say 同学们好, and you say 老师好. We're going to close class in a few minutes, and I will say 同学们再见, and you will say 老师再见. The next thing that we talked about is the progression of learning. We talked about understand the reason, know your body. You can see our focus is on the lower body, the footwork, and the middle body. So that's what we did today for bow stance. There are two kinds of bow stance, the one where you lean forward, the one with the torso vertical. With empty stance, there are also two, the heel touch, which is what we did today, and then ball touch we'll do next week. Footwork technique, we talked about stance, moving, and rooting. In the stance, for most stances, there are three that are common. So the foot direction, weight over the bubbling well, crotch rounded, and then things will vary from one stance to another. And in the next slide, I'll show you some of the differences between bow stance and empty stance, foot location, leg shape, and weight distribution. So here we go. In bow stance, the first three that are in green are the same for both, and they're the same for, the stance we use for parallel stance for standing practice. Foot direction, either straight or diagonal. Weight over bubbling well, which means front back. Crotch rounded, which means inside outside. And then foot location, which is for bow stance, can you step out and come back and keep shoulder width? For empty stance, you want to be center line two sides. Leg shape, bow stance, the front leg is bent, but it's not over the toes. The back leg is straight but not locked. With empty stance, it's the front leg that's straight but not locked, and the back is bent, and it's fine if it's over the toes. Weight distribution is different. In bow stance, it's 60% on the front, and then in empty stance, it's actually 70% on the back. So that stance, we talked about moving, which is heel, ball, toe, bend knee. More walking evenly, like ice, walking over ice, and not dragging your feet or not lifting it too high. And then rooting. We talked about push and support, which is feeling that both legs are active. The back leg is pushing into the front leg is pushing back. And then central settle down. When you stop yourself, you'll feel the pulse going to the other leg and then comes back to the first leg. And there's this springy feeling, which actually is what Tai Chi energy feels like. It's this soft, springy feeling that we have when all our joints and muscles and tendons are all nicely open and connected. And then the last thing we talked about was body technique, body setting. Your hip is centralized. So in bow stance, tailbone over that line between your heels, and then the torso setting angles we talked about. And then body shape, which is the one we'll keep going back to when we do, especially when we do still practice. Head up, shoulders down, elbows down, absorb the chest, and relax the waist. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope I'll see you next week. Let us close class with the salute. 同学们，再见。
老师，再见。